Hello and welcome back to the Real Music Talks. Today's guest is Goya, a five-piece cinematic jazz band from Bristol. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, not too bad at all, not too bad. So what do we mean by cinematic jazz? Do you want to describe like your musical style and like how you guys sound? So like if someone came up to you on the street and said like you play in a band, what sort of music do you play?
Do you want to go?
I can try. I
Try.
I can try. I can try. I guess uh, it's good you asked this actually because it has happened a few times. In fact, it happens quite a lot, and it every time. I don't know about you, but I really
Yeah, everyone just comes up and says, "You sound like this, but you also sound like this," and it's like
it's quite
very
difficult.
flattering. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of hard to
So,
describe.
but I would say that if it's taking the principles of a traditional jazz approach and set up in some ways, i.e., having drums and piano and a saxophone and things like that, which in terms of like instrumentation are of a traditional setup, but then incorporating elements of other styles of music.
Yeah, it's very reflective of what we each individually listen to and are inspired by. And there is a lot of crossover, so that I think that's why we sort of work together really well. But we also have like nuanced interests.
mm,
Like I'm very much classical. You're, I don't know what.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. So it's that molding
Mm.
of distinct distinct styles, but then through the actual instrumentation itself, we're trying to like make that work in some way, and it just so happens that we all sort of like film soundtracks and ambient music and music that is particularly emotive and like makes us feel
Mm.
things and
There's also the fact that it's like it's instrumental. There isn't really at the moment vocals incorporated into it, so there's not really lyrics as such. So that it does fit into the film context very easily.
yeah,
Why I
yeah.
say easily,
It could.
it could.
So yeah, it's I think it's a loose definition, but it's one that seemed to fit with the general ethos of what we were doing. Mm.
Yes. Oh, you're
Oh,
muted.
we can't hear you. Or you muted. Potentially.
You can hear me now, yeah?
Yeah.
So obviously you mentioned you've got like separate influences. Do you want to maybe talk individually about how you both got into music? It'd be interesting to hear like your journey separately
Yeah.
and see like how different it was.
Okay.
Go on.
Well, I feel like a lot of our band has like had a lifelong sort of influence with music. Yeah, I studied classical music throughout sort of my whole upbringing, and I've only sort of recently left that behind and tried to veer off into sort of jazz and other things. But that's been the basis of mine. Like being, I studied sort of classical piano as well, and the studied that at uni, but ended
Mm.
up not. So I've very much got a wealth of knowledge
Yeah,
about old
absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it definitely comes through in my playing. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, it sounds like either sort of like Debussy or Chopin."
Yeah, yeah. I think that's definitely
It's,
something that comes out in
yeah,
your playing. What
it's a nice thing to like just lump into. Well, not lump into. Have sort of coming through. Sort of, I suppose, modern music.
yeah, yeah, and like I guess it informed your like your expansion into what you listen to as well, like
Yeah,
particularly, yeah.
absolutely.
So like what we like we've listened to, I think what we mutually sort of, we came, like I said, like, well, Victoria came from a very classical background,
Mm.
and I myself came from about the most not classical background that you can imagine. um and James, the sax player, so the band is formed of Victoria, myself, James, who plays
Maybe we
saxophone.
should have introduced
Yeah, we should have been, Oliver Kaduchkin on guitar and Ben Jenkins on bass. Um and it's, yeah, yeah, we as in Victoria and I came together because we sort of have found a mutual love for what we would describe as the somewhat cinematic jazz scene, which is bands like Portico Quartet and Mammal Hands and Slowly Rolling Camera
Yeah.
and a few other of those bands. And but like I said, I come from a very, very, very different musical path from Victoria. Like I was listening to, you know, Radiohead and that kind of stuff, Foals, a lot of indie stuff growing up. Then like, you know, moving into, you know, Portishead and the trip hop scene, and then slowly, as I started to sort of really focus on music, I like about 4 or 5 years ago now, I started to like really enjoy that, like jazz music and like progressive electronic music and that kind of stuff, and so that played into what I was listening to, and the cinematic jazz scene, a lot of it takes on a lot of that kind of sound, but with a combination of a classical sort of harmonic spectrum, as in like the emotional range and depth of it. And so I heard Victoria playing and I was like, that's somebody who I want to play music with. And so we started listening to music together, and then slowly incorporated the other members of the band into that. Yeah.
Into a project that's named after your cat.
Yes, into a project that is named after my cat.
That's a nice touch. So I think it's quite interesting to hear like the classical background and the jazz background and the different like influences. When I listened to you guys, I was wondering how much of it is improvised and how much of it is like properly composed. Like, what does that process look like when you sit down and actually write these pieces of music?
That's a bit it's a bit of a nuance. I want to use that word, but I don't know if that's the right context. But like when the only things we have released are like the Live at St George's, and that did come at like October 2020. So we were in the middle of the pandemic still. I was still in the middle of it. But we didn't really have we didn't really have much time to like play together, and there's no way of really remotely sort of practicing and writing together because of the latency. There's not really an easy way of getting around that. So it took like sort of bouncing WAVs from place to place, and then when it was safe, like getting everyone up into a room, and we only had like maybe 2 or 3 rehearsals altogether.
Like,
It was really hard because of like trying to keep to regulations, and even like the recording, there was a maximum of 6 people there, so it was like, okay, you have to do all the videography, all the sound tech, all of everything, because like at the time we were a 4-piece band. So it was a real task. And it's a blessing that we have them out, but because of the lack of sort of practice, there were a lot of sections in those recordings which were essentially improvised.
I mean, I think there's a focus on improvisation in many ways, but generally the process of writing each song has been from like Victoria says, like a sort of slowly collaborative. It's kind of, I guess it's kind of an improvisational sort of principle, but it starts with a concept usually developed by Victoria, who sort of has an idea on the keys of what you know, some like chord progression or theme or movement, and often that takes the form of some kind of rhythmic game or something like that she then brings to me, and we obviously live together, so that's been useful, and we'll improvise around it, and then we'll take that and record it badly on our phones, then send it to somebody else. They'll have an idea.
But it's like trying to consciously leave space for other instruments and thinking, okay, well, this, like, James could do something here, Ben could be doing something here, so I'll leave a bit of space. But it's like just trying to imagine that whilst you're just like recording it badly. And hoping that it all comes through.
And I think it's been quite. And obviously recently, as you know, things have, you know, changed or whatever, we've had the chance to play together a little bit more, so the process is sort of changing a little bit now as things change,
and it's becoming easier to improvise together, like actually purposefully. Like when we bust now, we have like spaces for jams because we've had like the time and opportunity to actually play together and understand each other as musicians and get each other inside each other's heads, and just be able to predict what each other's going to do. So to an extent,
so it's becoming a bigger part of our process. But generally a lot of the things are pretty, for the want of a better word, scripted. Like it's like there's a lot of like distinct moments, and I think that also, sorry to just keep going on, but like but like to relate it back to the cinematic question, that for us is another feature of the cinematic aspect of it, in the sense of like the moments of build and tension and improvised flow into moments of like quite definitive, defined drama or climax of some description, and that in some ways kind of reflective of a lot of film soundtracks. A lot, it's a lot of meandering before up to a moment, building to a section, or and so that's kind of how it sort of interlocks, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It feels like as a band, you guys have got a really clear picture of like what you're trying to get to when you're writing something. I don't know if that's true or not, or if it takes loads of different like paths there, but I feel like at least you got an idea of like where you're kind of going overall with like what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely changes over time. Like, a lot of our pieces are patchworks of different ideas, but we generally can sort of foresee how we want it to compositionally look.
Feel, I would say.
Yeah, I'm just like
yeah.
the whole sort of picture thing. But yeah, I feel like we all have like an idea of. It might actually be different. I don't know. I'm babbling.
No. Go on.
I've forgotten the question.
I think we have a clear. We do. I would say that we do have a clear focus, but like Victoria says, it's one that does change. Like we have a like I said, for me anyway, it feels more like there's an energy or a vibe or a concept or a feeling that we had usually when we first improvised over the idea or played with the idea, and so it'll usually be a terrible phone recording which is really blown out or whatever, and there's something about it that we're like, oh yeah, there was that. And then when you bring it to other people, obviously they're all like the other members of the band, they really bring their own personality to it, so it has to be able to change with them and what they want to bring to it, honestly. But like there is a general sort of commitment to that kind of like, oh no, what was good about that original idea, so that it then like has a chance to develop. I think that's
obviously it's at least taking a part of that sort of initial sort of view.
And with that sort of creative direction, is it a case of like you've got a certain kind of feeling you're trying to create with the music, or is it more you expressing yourselves and how you're actually feeling?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both. We want it to be cohesive and be like an enjoyment to listen to, and but at the same time, we all want to enjoy what we're playing. So of course, we're going to like be integrating like what we want to present, really, not just like to peacock, as it were, but to just like feel like this is bordering the extent of my capability, or not even capability, like skill at this point. Like it's like we've all spent so long on our instruments that it's like we want to be able to sort of introduce as many
challenge.
Yeah,
which I think
challenge is a huge part.
Is a big part of it. Like it's an opportunity to play with me, like I sort of mentioned earlier, but like so much of Goya's music starts with like almost like an improvisational game. Like it'll be like we'll choose some and they're really stupid, like they're like so stupid.
What's the hardest key to play in for this instrument? What's the worst time signature? What's our favorite prime number that we can somehow shove into?
And so those games stimulate a kind of like stimulate some kind of
it's a nice way of pushing us both at our instrument but also creating something in the process.
Yeah, absolutely, because for us, like a lot of enjoyment can be found from just being like, what's something that I wouldn't do if I'm just playing by myself, or just playing, so like what is actually challenging for us, and that keeps it interesting. But then I guess then another big task then comes in, which is like, how do you then make that not just us messing about and making weird noises on an instrument, and like
we often like just we do that, and then we cut back from the idea, and then we might just take an element from that and then put it into another idea. And I feel like most of our pieces are as I said, a patchwork of like 3 or 4 ideas with the bases on.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we're gonna write in 4/4 and then switch it to 7/8 every other bar.
Just because there's a kind of sadism about it. That's quite
like, I know what numbers you don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah, we mean to each other.
I guess with doing music like that and thinking of like how can you be, I guess, like clever with what you're doing, how do you make that relatable, or do you just not try and make it relatable and not worry about what people think of it, or trying to make it commercial in any way?
Thankfully,
Yeah.
we've got
enough people to tell us if it's annoying or not.
and we've also got other members of the band who are all very,
and they'll
very
be
good.
like,
And
back.
so there's a like there's an interesting, very different, chaotic energy between Victoria and myself as friends and as musicians, and it's very, very different from each other. So we're coming in from polar angles, and we've got three wonderful people who are there to
very, very kind about
yeah, really kind of just like, and very good at just being like,
but also just as bad as like us as bringing in sort of
yeah, they all bring in their own crazy, but they're all very good at making what we're doing feel like a whole, because drums and piano, yes, there's times where it's like, oh cool, that's a nice idea, that's a nice vibe, just the two of us, but always we'll have something, and it might be a little bit frantic or a little bit like inaccessible, or perhaps not particularly palatable, or even that worthwhile, but sometimes they might hear something and be like, oh yeah, there's an opportunity for me to do something, and that then opening of it up into the others is really it's invaluable. It's what makes all of the tracks, like if you really go back to it and just strip down what the drums and keys are doing, we're like just sort of laying a foundation for which the others are
I think even as Ben described it, like we were laying a blanket, almost a blanket of sound for them to sort of introduce their bits on.
So that perhaps makes it more like palatable, and then we try and play quietly so that we do.
I mean, there is a lot of playing with ideas, and I feel like we do decide whether something is absolutely terrible or not before
we try our best.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier that you would consider doing vocals in the future, and I know it's instrumental at the moment. What's your thinking behind that, and where are you thinking of going with it?
Well, it's been mentioned to us a few times, but I feel like just not remaining static as a band is a really sort of prominent thing that we keep coming back to. It's like even introducing more pedals, more synths, or just developing our sound. We don't want to become stagnant and like turning out the same music. So it's like we're open to incorporating new things. Like I've even been talking about maybe introducing harp, like we had Ollie Production playing clarinet for a while, and he's decided now that perhaps that isn't going to be a part, or like we're just like we're exploring.
We are open, and I think vocals is definitely something that we can do. I think there's a factor which we've definitely talked about a little bit, which is that in some ways vocals make it more accessible in delivering a simple message, or not even simple, just like just the human voice makes it accessible in many ways to a lot of people. However, if you're going to have lyrics, which is a slightly different thing, that
it's very leading.
Well, yeah, it's very leading. It creates concept, it creates imagery that's definite, or like like it's clear in some way.
It's like it's a painting of a bowl of fruit as opposed to like an abstract piece.
Yeah, it becomes less. Yeah, exactly. It becomes way less abstract, and actually that in a way has the potential to alienate some people. Like we all have our own like independent musical projects, and I think that sometimes though those go off in whatever directions they may, but they're definitely not tailored for everyone. Whereas Goya,
I mean, we're not going to be able to tailor ourselves to everyone. I mean,
no, but for what's been lovely for me as an experience being in this particular project, as opposed to many others that I've been, not as opposed to, but just like alongside of, is that a lot of different people seem to like it. Like
not, demographic is very
very like I've been in bands which like clearly I'm this is aimed at 18 to whatever, or 16 to whatever, or is aimed at a specific demographic of people who listen to a specific kind of music. But something that's really nice about Goya, because it incorporates lots of other elements and is also not vocally led, like it anyone can like it. It doesn't contain anything that somebody can disagree with in a kind of conceptual way or find is alienating for them. It's just about how the sound transports them and makes them feel. So there is something quite nice about it. So like we've had some beautiful experiences, just taxi drivers listening to it while we're driving back at like 4 a.m. and really enjoying it.
Yeah.
My grandma likes it. Like that kind of thing is actually,
I think everyone's grandma.
yeah, really nice. It's nice to be able to feel like we're not being lazy, I don't think, in our process. We're really trying not to be. And we're not like not experimenting. We're not trying to not be, use things that are modern and current and right now in our music, but also anybody of it can listen to it and enjoy it, hopefully, and get something from it, because it is personal to their interpretation of it, and no one can really like influence that.
That's really interesting. I think to be fair, like the vocal approach could also be very abstract.
Yeah.
Because you do hear bands where like the vocals don't actually have any like real meaning. It's more just kind of like abstract, and it leaves the listener to kind of interpret what they want, which is obviously what you guys are trying to do with the music. I don't know how much you thought about the different things you could do vocally, but I don't know, that might work.
It's on the mind, but like, I think we're we've just got to find that, like you say, the right way to incorporate it.
So thinking about like how you guys would record music, it's not a simple like 3-piece rock band where you could just go into the studio, record drums, bass, vocals, done. What does that process look like? How do you go in and record these sort of pieces of music?
So we're a bit blessed because over the past year, we've built up all the equipment we need to be able to record from home. And we're also blessed with our location because we are able to play drums in our house without too many people complaining, given like the brackets of time. But like, we can set up everything in our living room, but it is a huge setup, and I stay out of that because it's terrifying.
I do most of the sort of mixing and stuff for the project, so like that's sort of one of the things that I am able to provide in some way.
You did all of live.
Yeah, I did the last EP, and but I think in terms of process, it depends. Like, so the live at St. George's EP was obviously live. It was just recorded of us playing together, playing the songs together. But I think
it was difficult because it was like there was a few of us which were DI'd. Like Ben wasn't playing in the room, so I had to have him through headphones. Well, we all had to have him through headphones. Because of the limitations of the drums, and everything was acoustic and interacting with each other. And adding another thing into that for recording purposes was a bit difficult.
And that has its own complexities. But I think so at the moment, and I think our next, we've got a couple of new songs that we've written, and we're quite excited to get recorded, and we feel like they've had a good response when we've played them live, and are just in that exciting time where you're like, oh, maybe we'll do something with this. So I think for that we're gonna start we'll probably do, so I use Ableton. I'll build a custom click track for the piece, because it does, most of the pieces change time signature and BPM and all of that, so create a custom one by basically getting Victoria to play it in time and then altering it, and then it'll be a case of recording all of us playing together. But fortunately, because of the way that we've got the setup, we can just DI everybody in, so it's just silent apart from the drums. So you might hear, I don't know, a very quiet guitar pluck or like the click of a piano, but like it's nothing that's going to get in the way. And then we can then record bass and things separately afterwards, and so we then just so in a way it's almost like a traditional process of recording one instrument at a time in many ways, but it's done with each person not just like playing alone to a click. You're playing with everyone else in the room. You can hear them,
and it's also been considered a lot whilst we've been writing them, and like talking about James being in another room perhaps, or even recording afterwards if we can't always do it all together because of like he's another acoustic instrument. So that's
something we're thinking about.
We're yet to actually do an actual sort of studio version, because we've done a live EP, but I think we're quite excited.
We're quite excited to get going in the studio a little bit now.
Crazy mixing.
I bet it's gonna be exciting when you guys can just have it all in a room, like loud, all mic'd up, and just like record all the tracks.
It will be. I hope so.
I mean, that's what we started out like that. Like the first weekend we really got together, we didn't even have a name for the band. It was myself, Stan, and James, and we actually had another friend Ollie playing guitar at the time because he also co-ran the
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
But one of the first jams we had, we managed to record live. And we try to jam that now, whilst retaining like the original, but I think that was the last time we actually sort of recorded a live room with Goya.
Yeah.
And that was like late 2019, I think.
Yeah, it was
October.
It was quite a long time ago. It was, but I think now it's just been, like I said, it's been a process of writing. It's been a process of developing a writing process. It's been a process of figuring out what the concept, the sound, the what we want to do with the project.
Yeah, we're constantly like discussing what we actually sort of, what are we writing for? What are we wanting to achieve? Is it just enjoyment of playing? What do we want people to feel?
Yeah, I think that's that there's a focus on trying to make it conscious, which is and in a way lockdown has been
a bit stifling.
Yeah,
also sort of eye-opening.
Yeah, stifling.
It's like pushed, like, it's okay, you're not allowed to play with each other. Like,
yeah.
What can you do?
What can you do? And then when you do it, you have to come at it with the right intention, with a level of like clarity, I guess, because you're not able to just sort of feel things in quite the same way that we might have a while ago. But like I said, recently we've been able to get in a room together, rehearse in you know, in various capacities, and that has been really important because we've had gigs. You know, we've suddenly had, like, we're able to play on the street. We had a gig at Mr. Wolf's. We had a gig that was cancelled at Mr. Wolf's, and then we played in St Andrew's Park in socially distanced, like had everyone dusted, like annoyed some mums. But it was really, it's been really good to be able to actually have that developmental time at playing together, so that, you know, we can now actually get into that studio space.
I guess you kind of talked about it a little bit. What is kind of the long-term vision for the group? What's kind of like the 5-year plan? Dare I say it?
Move to Berlin. Play in Berlin.
Play in Berlin would be cool. Yeah,
it's a nice little tour.
I think for me anyway, I think a big one is, like, I feel that for a lot of young people, and particularly anyone who's conscious of, you know, your environmental impacts, all of that kind of stuff, like, it's difficult to see the world in a way that feels not necessarily positive, but, like, you know, that isn't in some way taking up space, or just traveling, or, you know, and so, like, there's, and also with a global pandemic, you know, there's barriers to traveling in some ways right now, and I am very keen to see the world and experience a little bit of different kinds of music and different kinds of cultures, and how they approach the kind of stuff that we're doing, and learning, just really, like, and to do that, I think if we had something that we are able to bring back, i.e. performing, being able to play as a group in different places, that would be amazing.
Without just like appropriating, but actually just like getting that raw inspiration and
and just and being able to share what we do uniquely from our little house in Bristol to, like, other people, and seeing how and if it makes people feel anything. So I think definitely traveling a bit if we can, and playing for people where we can, and then just making as much, I think, just
growing and getting better at our instruments, writing nice things.
I think
showing people nice things.
Yeah, I think it's really is a process of us just being like, we enjoy making sounds together, so we're just going to try and do that as best we can, and keep
just hope we're still playing in 5 years.
And keep, and I think not becoming too I think complacency is a good word, is like that we try and, like, stay away from, is like, don't let ourselves become complacent. Keep listening to what's going on around us. We're really fortunate to be surrounded in Bristol and in the UK in many ways, but, like, in Bristol particularly, by an incredible scene of music. The jazz scene, for me at least, in this city is really awesome. There's it's really it's a joy to be around, you know, to be surrounded by that, and not just jazz scene. There's incredible, like, electronic music being made here. We've got some wonderful friends through Fat and the Pitch Collective, and a few other different organizations of people who are working around Bristol, and through that we're just, like, just pretty much endlessly inspired. So we're just very fortunate to be here and be like, yeah, we can just do our best in this environment, and get to play and meet and listen to some wonderful what an exciting time to be in Bristol in the UK to making music. There's Gift, Snazback, there's just so many brilliant acts coming through right now.
Awesome. So the chat today's been really good. We're actually nearly out of time now. But is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with? This is just the open question where you can say what you want, basically.
We could have incorporated Ben's and James's and Ollie's ideas as well.
Yeah, I think
it's hard to get them all in one screen.
Yeah, it would be hard to get everybody here for this at the same time. But I think I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that we'd. I would say if you're interested, do listen. We're going to be playing around Bristol.
Writing new stuff.
We're writing new stuff. Yeah, it is different, and it's influenced by new things, and we're excited to show people and share it. And yeah, it feels like right now a hopeful time in some ways to be making music. Difficult, very, very difficult in others, but I'm grateful for the community that we have here and for the opportunity that we have to be able to play, and just just that privilege is wicked. I hope that we can see some people in real life a little bit more now. I think now as if they keep the restrictions as they are, then maybe we'll be able to see some faces in real life, and maybe even I hate to say it, but football might even come home. Like who the fuck, who knows? Like it's possible. Anything's possible at this. Like all bets are off. Pigs might fly. So like
we're just happy playing to suit of people at the moment.
Yeah,
if they can dance at some point, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'd love for people to be able to dance. So yeah.
But if they don't want to dance, it's fine.
Yes.
If they do, sure.
We'd love to play for some people soon. So yeah.
I've got to say, I find that really frustrating at the moment. I went to an event and got told off for standing on the table and trying to dance. They were like, no, you got to sit down. You got to sit down.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for chatting, guys. It's been really great today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice one. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.